So today I want to talk about, from the devotional series, The Best Life Possible, Change Your Thoughts and Change Your Life. Our scripture today comes out of Romans 12, verse 2, where it says, "Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So, every day we're bombarded by technology and social media with everybody vying for our time, our attention, filling our minds with all kinds of stuff. We spend a lot of time doing that. And science is finding out that it doesn't just alter our behaviors, but fundamentally alters who we become as people. And it's pretty shocking when I think about that that's what they're finding out. And, we're all guilty of that in one fashion or another. We enjoy our communications over Facebook and other forms of media. So what's the intent here if in God's design, if we're going to have the best life possible, and we look at that scripture? Well, the first thing we want to know is that God's way of doing the best life possible would be a life that's whole and ordered, and filled with the things that would give us a good path or direction to stay on, so that we can have the best life possible. And what we need to think about in that regard is right in that particular scripture. But before we talk about that, something that'll help us with that is something that we find in the wisdom book of Proverbs. There's something called parallelism, where there are two competing thoughts. You have, like, go to the ant, you sluggard. It's talking about some guy that's lazy. And then right next to it, or right after it, or in the same area, you have God talking about someone being diligent. So whatever we think about when we think about our scripture today from Romans 12, we're going to remember that the answer for what we need is going to be opposite of what the negative part is, or what the world thinks. So let's just do like a literal translation of Romans 12:2. And do not be conformed would mean change the way, the pattern of your thinking, your acting, the way you live. That would be, don't be conformed. Change that to the opposite of what the world is, and be transformed. And that means to be changed fundamentally. By what? It said by the renewing of your mind, which literally means by the repairing or the restoring of what you're taking in to yourself. So what's the practical thing about what we take into ourselves today in terms of what does that mean? How do we do that? Well, if we're going to be transformed, we know it's going to be opposite, right? So what does the world not have enough of? Or even as Christians, what don't we have enough of? We don't have enough of the Word in us. We don't study God's Word. We don't find out what the stories tell us. A lot of great stories within the Scriptures designed to guide us and lead us. So if we're going to be fundamentally transformed and change our pattern of thinking, talking, the manner that we live, the actions that we do, they got to come from the Scriptures. And if we are to be transformed, we need to be in them more than we need to spend time on social media. Now, we're all guilty of that. I get it. But if we're finding out that these type of things in modern day are actually transforming not just our behaviors, but us as people, that's fairly serious. And that's not where we're going to find the best life possible, because it's going to take us off the path. And that's what Hebrew language really talks a lot about. Like, there's no a good and bad in terms of how we would think about it in an abstract way. In the Hebrew nation of Israel in the Old Testament, to them, something was, if it was bad, it wasn't functional. It was out of order. It wasn't directed. And if it was functional, then that's an ordered life, following a specific path, following God's teachings, and that's the direction that we would take. So we don't want to think about it as we're being bad or being good. We're either functional in our life or dysfunctional. And pretty much, if we follow the way the world does things and take that side too deeply, we're dysfunctional. So change your thoughts, change your life.